Mother Teresa, affectionately known as the Saint of the Gutter, was born in 1910 in the territory we now know as Macedonia. Her name resonates to this day as a universal symbol of love, compassion, and unconditional dedication to those most in need. Her public figure, marked by humility and service, remains alive in the collective imagination. But what few know is that behind her serene smile and seemingly unshakable strength, there was a woman who fought intense battles within herself. Crises of faith, spiritual doubts, and silent anguish accompanied her for decades, even as she transformed lives around the world. This lesser-known side of her life reveals even more the depth of her humanity and the strength of her faith. It was on the streets of Calcutta, amid extreme poverty and abandonment, that Mother Teresa found her true calling. Dedicating herself to the poorest of the poor was not just a gesture of charity, but a profound spiritual commitment. She believed that in every face marked by suffering there was Christ, palpably present. In her simple white sari with blue borders, she walked the streets, bringing hope and dignity to those whom society had discarded. Yet, while her hands healed wounds and her gestures offered comfort, her heart carried an invisible weight, a sense of distance from God, a spiritual emptiness that persisted for almost 50 years. After her death in 1997, the world was privy to a hidden side of her story. Personal letters, written over decades, revealed an inner struggle that she kept secret. In one of the most powerful passages, Mother Teresa described with pain, "Darkness surrounds me on all sides. I cannot raise my soul to God." Her words reveal the depth of the spiritual suffering she faced, a feeling of divine absence that contrasted with the faith she demonstrated to the world. This struggle, far from diminishing her greatness, humanizes her and teaches us that holiness is not the absence of challenges, but the courage to move forward despite them. In 1942, Mother Teresa made a vow that would shape her entire life. She promised God that she would never refuse anything He asked of her. This commitment was the foundation of her mission, a total surrender that led her in 1946 to experience a moment that she described as the call within the call. During a train journey, she felt deeply touched by God, receiving the spiritual impulse to found a new religious order, the Missionaries of Charity. From that day on, her life changed forever. She dedicated herself tirelessly to serving those who lived on the margins of society, bringing love, care, and above all, dignity. Her work went beyond the material. Mother Teresa believed that the deepest poverty was not a lack of resources, but an absence of love. She sought to quench the thirst of Christ on the cross, a thirst for souls and love, by serving those most in need with complete surrender. She reminded us of the words of Matthew 25:40, "Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers of mine, you did for me." This deep connection to human suffering guided every step of her mission. For her, every act of love, no matter how small, was a living expression of faith. But even as she offered hope to so many, Mother Teresa faced a spiritual darkness that never completely dissipated. In her letters, she confessed feelings of abandonment and doubt, but she never allowed them to interfere with her mission. On the contrary, this vulnerability brought her closer to the people she helped. She understood the suffering of others because she experienced it herself. And this deep identification made her an even more powerful example of faith and compassion. Mother Teresa's struggle teaches us that faith is not a linear path. It is not a journey without shadows or questions. On the contrary, it is in the darkest moments that true spiritual strength is revealed. Her letters invite us to reflect on how to persevere even when we feel distant from God. Holiness, as she showed, is not the absence of suffering, but the ability to continue loving, serving, and trusting, even without clear answers. In the last years of her life, despite facing health problems, her dedication remained unwavering. She continued to serve, smile and bring comfort, even when her physical strength was diminished. Her physical fragility was never an obstacle to the strength of her spirit. In one of her last messages, she wrote, "I want Jesus." These simple words reveal the essence of her life, a deep desire to be in communion with God, even in the midst of spiritual darkness. Mother Teresa's legacy transcends cultural, religious, and social barriers. She taught us that true love begins at home, in small gestures that can transform lives. Her advice to a man who wanted to change the world was straightforward. Go home and love your family. This simplicity is what makes her message so powerful. Great transformations begin with seemingly insignificant acts of love. It is in everyday life, in the simplest actions, that the love of Christ manifests itself. Her worldview went beyond the boundaries of religion. Mother Teresa advocated unity and interfaith dialogue, believing that compassion was universal and that everyone, regardless of their faith, could be an instrument of peace. Her message transcended differences and promoted solidarity in a world so divided. She believed that prayer had the power to unite hearts and transform realities. For her, prayer was more than words. It was a gesture of love and communion with God. Today, the work Mother Teresa began lives on in the Missionaries of Charity, present in more than 130 countries. Her life was a testament to the power of love and compassion. Her acts of kindness touch millions of lives, reminding us that each person has inestimable value. Her story inspires us to believe that even in the most challenging circumstances, we can be a light for others. Mother Teresa showed us that holiness is not unattainable. She taught us that true greatness lies in humility, service, and the ability to trust in God even when the path is shrouded in darkness. Her example is an invitation to live an authentic faith, marked by love and surrender. Even in the midst of doubts and challenges, we can find strength in God and move forward, trusting that He is by our side, guiding us every step of the way. If you want to transform your life, start with small acts of love. Cultivate prayer, trust in God, and service to others. Just like Mother Teresa, we can leave a legacy of light in a world that so desperately needs hope and compassion. Let us walk this path of faith and love together, knowing that, even in the most difficult moments, God never abandons us. Mother Teresa believed that the true purpose of life was to serve. It didn't matter how big the gesture was, but how much love we put into it. This is reflected in one of her most famous quotes. "We do not do great things, only small things, with great love." And that is exactly what her life teaches us. When we look at her life story, we realize that she did not seek great achievements to impress the world, but acted with such genuine humility that she transformed everything around her. Her work with the poorest went far beyond providing food or medical care. She offered something that many did not even know they needed: dignity. Mother Teresa saw each person as a divine creation, worthy of respect and unconditional love, even if the world had given up on them. For her, serving others was serving Christ Himself. This vision was deeply rooted in her spirituality. It was not just about alleviating physical suffering, but about touching people's souls, reminding them of their intrinsic value. A powerful example of this was the work she did in the homes for the dying. The first, called Nirmal Hriday, Pure Heart, was created to welcome those who were on the brink of death with no one to care for them. In this space, Mother Teresa and her sisters offered something invaluable: the opportunity to die with dignity. There, patients received care, comfort, and love in their final days. This mission not only showed compassion, but also reinforced her belief that no one should feel abandoned, especially in the most difficult moments. In addition, her work with lepers was revolutionary. At a time when leprosy was seen as a taboo, and those with the disease were marginalized, Mother Teresa challenged prejudice and created communities where these people could live with dignity. In Chantinagar, City of Peace, lepers found medical treatment, emotional support, and above all, new hope. This work not only treated their physical wounds, but also healed the deep emotional wounds caused by social abandonment. Mother Teresa's mission also extended to children. In a world marked by war, famine, and abandonment, she opened orphanages to welcome the little ones who had been left behind. Each of these children received something that many had never experienced: unconditional love. Mother Teresa knew that she could not change the past of these children, but she could offer them a future, and that was what motivated her. Her work with the little ones was a natural extension of her vision to love everyone without distinction. Even in the face of so many challenges, Mother Teresa never lost sight of her mission. She faced criticism, financial difficulties, and even misunderstandings from those close to her, but her faith sustained her. It was a faith built not on the absence of doubts, but on perseverance. As she herself once said, God does not call us to be successful, but to be faithful. This faithfulness was what kept her steadfast, even when the winds seemed contrary. A fascinating aspect of Mother Teresa's life was her ability to find beauty in sacrifice. For her, every sacrifice was an opportunity to join Christ's suffering. Her spiritual darkness, which for many would be an unbearable burden, became a bridge to the poorest. She understood their suffering not only out of empathy, but because she had experienced something similar in her own soul. This made her a living witness that true faith is not a painless path, but a journey of love and surrender. Furthermore, Mother Teresa never stopped advocating the power of prayer. For her, prayer was the key to transforming hearts and bringing peace to the world. She often told those around her, "The family that prays together stays together." She believed that prayer not only brought people closer to God, but also to each other. In a world marked by divisions, Mother Teresa saw prayer as a powerful instrument of reconciliation. Her words and actions also inspired religious leaders, politicians, and ordinary people around the world. Even those who did not share her faith were touched by her humility and compassion. Mother Teresa demonstrated through her life that true faith knows no cultural or religious barriers. She believed that the essence of divine love was universal, and that everyone had the ability to spread that love, regardless of their beliefs. However, Mother Teresa knew that transforming the world began within each of us. She constantly reminded us that change does not come from grand speeches or grandiose actions, but from small acts of love. This challenges us to look at our own lives and ask, how can we make a difference? We may not be able to help thousands of people as she did, but we can transform the world around us, one act of kindness at a time. One of Mother Teresa's most remarkable legacies was her ability to touch hearts. She showed us that, even in the midst of adversity, it is possible to live with purpose. Her spiritual struggles, far from diminishing her, brought her even closer to all of us. After all, who has never had doubts or felt distant from God at some point? What makes her special is not the absence of these doubts, but her choice to keep walking, even without seeing the path clearly. Her last years were marked by physical frailty, but her determination remained intact. Even when her body no longer had any strength, her soul continued to radiate love and hope. Until her last moment, she gave everything she had, trusting that God would take care of the rest. Her death in 1997 was a moment of global mourning, but also of celebration for a life lived so fully. Today, Mother Teresa's work continues through the missionaries of charity. Thousands of sisters inspired, by her example, dedicate their lives to serving those most in need in more than 130 countries. But her legacy goes beyond her visible works. It lives on in the hearts of all those who were touched by her story and her teachings. Her life is a reminder that we are all called to make a difference, no matter how small the gesture may seem. Mother Teresa leaves us an invitation to trust in God, to love without reservations, and to serve with joy. When we do this, we not only transform the world around us, but also our own lives. May we learn from her example and carry on her message, being a light for others, even in the darkest nights. Mother Teresa always emphasized that true transformation begins in the heart. For her, love was the foundation of everything, but not a theoretical or distant love. It was a love that manifested itself in concrete actions. Her life was a living testament to how simple gestures, done with intention and dedication, can have a profound impact. She said, "If you cannot feed 100 people, feed just one." This teaching is not only a lesson in charity, but also in focus and presence. In a world full of distractions and seemingly uncontrollable problems, she teaches us to look at what is within our reach and to act with love where we are. Throughout her life, Mother Teresa encountered many people who wanted to change the world, but didn't know where to start. Her answer always pointed to the roots. Start with your home, love your family. This simplicity may seem counterintuitive in a world that values great achievements and global change, yet it is precisely this approach that makes all the difference. Love begins at home, in the closest relationships, and from there it expands to the rest of the world. She knew that many people were overwhelmed by the suffering they saw around them. For them, Mother Teresa had a comforting message. No matter how small your act of kindness, it counts. Every smile, every word of comfort, every gesture of support contributes to building a more compassionate world. This was her philosophy. Be faithful in the little things, because it is in the little things that we find greatness. Mother Teresa was also an advocate of perseverance, especially in times of difficulty. She believed that true faith was not measured by the absence of challenges, but by the ability to keep walking, even when the path seemed uncertain. Her own spiritual crises are a powerful example of this. Although she felt distant from God for much of her life, she never gave up on His presence. Instead, she embraced this darkness as an opportunity to unite more deeply with the suffering of Christ and the poor she served. Mother Teresa's inner struggle is something many of us can relate to. Who hasn't experienced moments of doubt or felt like their prayers weren't being heard? Her story reminds us that these moments are not signs of failure, but rather opportunities for spiritual growth. True faith is not one that never questions, but one that persists even when there are no immediate answers. Mother Teresa transformed her doubts into acts of love, showing that it is possible to find God in service to others, even when we don't feel Him directly. Her worldview was also profoundly inclusive. She believed that every person, regardless of their religion, culture, or social status, was worthy of God's love. This understanding led her to seek unity among people, promoting interfaith dialogue and cooperation. For her, differences were not barriers, but bridges that could be built on the basis of compassion and mutual respect. This spirit of unity is more relevant than ever in a world where divisions still generate conflict and suffering. Mother Teresa also taught us the value of silence and listening. In a noisy world where we are constantly bombarded with information and expectations, she reminded us of the importance of taking time for introspection and prayer. For her, it was in silence that God spoke most clearly. This silence was not a void, but a sacred space where the soul could rest and reconnect with the divine. She believed that we all need such moments, not only to find inner peace, but also to strengthen ourselves in the face of life's difficulties. Another important aspect of her legacy was her view of joy. Mother Teresa believed that true joy came from serving others. She often said, "Joy is the net of love with which you can catch souls." Her own life was a reflection of this joy. Even when faced with immense challenges, she radiated a light that touched everyone she met. This joy was not superficial, but came from a deep source, rooted in her faith and her conviction that she was fulfilling God's purpose. Mother Teresa also left us a model of humility. Despite receiving awards and recognition from around the world, she never sought glory for herself. For her, everything was for the glory of God. Such humility is rare in a world that often values ego and self-promotion. She reminds us that true greatness lies not in being recognized, but in serving with love and simplicity. Her teachings remain relevant because they speak directly to the needs of the human heart. We live in a time when many feel lost, disconnected, or overwhelmed by the demands of modern life. Mother Teresa offers us an alternative, living with purpose, putting love at the center of everything we do. This purpose does not have to be grandiose in the eyes of the world. It can be found in small gestures, in everyday relationships, and in caring for others. Today, as we look at her life and legacy, we are challenged to reflect on how we can apply her teachings to our own lives. How can we be instruments of peace and love in the world? How can we serve others with joy and humility? Mother Teresa showed us that the answer lies in doing good, even when no one is looking, and in trusting that God is present in every small action. Even after her death, the impact of her life continues to inspire millions of people. The missionaries of charity, the order she founded, continue their mission, bringing hope to places where there was once only despair. But Mother Teresa's legacy does not belong only to these sisters. It belongs to all of us who can learn from her example and spread light wherever we are. If there is one thing that Mother Teresa's life teaches us, it is that we all have the capacity to make a difference. No matter how small our gesture, it can have an immense impact on someone's life. Mother Teresa challenges us to live with purpose, to love without reservation, and to trust God fully. May we accept this invitation and transform our lives, becoming agents of transformation for the world.